And good morning, listening world. Excuse me. Hello, Puss. This is my first go at one of these. Not walking around with a camera. I used to do that a lot when I went fishing, because my dear old mum used to like to know what I was doing. And she'd have a look at them when I came back. But this is something else. Firstly, I'll just take you around the back here. Now, about 3 years ago, I counted 21 different species of birds in the back garden. My mother died in 2014. 2 weeks after her funeral, the council came round and did this. Now, this, you've got to remember, this is 18 months on, so things have grown back a bit. But they cut everything back, everything you can see. There was 2 little apple trees over there. One's come back. The holly's come back, that was cut back. There was an ash that's just starting to come back there, as you can see. There was 2 sycamores there, like a screen. And there was a large fir there, I must admit, about the size of that thing there. Anyway, and there was an old damson tree, which I planted here 40 years ago, because I've lived here since 1956. Vista. Not much to see down the other end, as modern thing these days is to put bloody fences up as soon as people move in. Anyway, as I say, that was 2 weeks after her funeral. Now, I'm not saying that the things were grown up a bit, but then she'd been ill, and getting worse, poor love. And frankly, I'd had other things on my mind. I remember sitting in the back bedroom listening to the chainsaws, and I tell you, it's like another bereavement. Hello, little pussycat. Anyway, so that was Mum died in 2014. Well, they cut down the fir we had there, and the ash tree there as well. We'd agreed to that one because it was big and too near the house, but the ash was only supposed to have been taken down to shoulder level, and that's what remains of it, that stump. I'm hoping we might get, as they're epicormics, we might get a bit back. There might even be a bit there, look. That could be it, yeah. Slowly. And Mum's magnolia that she was so fond of. It's a bit chilly this morning too. Like I say, you'll have to bear with me a bit because I have to gather my thoughts a bit. Anyway, like I said, I've lived here since 1956. 60 years, unbelievable. So that makes me 60, doesn't it? Well, actually, I'm 60 in 6 months. Last 15 years of her life, after my father died in '98 from lung cancer, were very, very horrible, very difficult for her, horrible for her, in fact. I mean, they'd been married for 52 years, and she almost died herself from a ruptured ulcer. That was not fun. But what was worse? Well, I can say worse. I mean, how can you can't quantify things like that, can you? Worse than losing the person you loved and lived with and brought up a family. What made her life miserable was the person who they moved in up there. A woman. I don't know what she is now. Supposedly she used to work at Slough Magistrates Court or something. I don't know in what capacity. It may not even be true, I don't know. That's what I was told. But as soon as she moved in, she started hammering on the ceiling and slamming doors and coming down telling us about bloody noise during the night, and it went on and on and on. There never was any, of course. And I say it went on. We weren't the sole target, but we were the sort of principal. Yeah, we were in the target sites the most. That's a funny thing, you know. I've gone through this in my mind a million times. I've written it out to the council, MPs, ombudsman. I've sent a letter to the Prime Minister the other day. All of this is, of course, a total waste of time. But anyway, to pick up the narrative, we put up with it for years and years and years, trying to persuade her to stop doing it, but it never did. Finally, in 2006, yeah, that's right, 7 years we put up with it. 2006, we made a complaint to the council, only to get sheaves of her complaints back. You know, the complaints were being used as a blind, obviously. Like I say, obviously, it's obviously to me, it's not obvious to you, of course it isn't. But I can assure you there were, and of course I can prove it. We were able to prove it since 2010. Now, I'll take you inside now. Oops, got a bit darker than that. Oh, there's my bike. Knee troubles has prevented me from riding. That was Mum and Dad's room. That was Mum's room, really, from after we lost Dad. It's a bit of a tip, I know, but I'll come to that in a second. Oh, for God's sake, my battery's on the blink. I only charged it last night. Anyway, it may have to be in two parts, this, with me hollering and cursing a bit for the start of the second one, and possibly the end of this one. It's only going about 7 minutes. Anyway, in 2009, after, well, hang on, I should say, let's cover 2008, shall we? In 2008 it got really bad. I had a woman upstairs, she was hammering on Mum's ceiling, you know, on a regular basis. I do remember on one particular occasion, Mum sometimes came in for a bit of a nap in the afternoon. She was 79 then, 78 then, 99, so 2000. Yeah, she was about, hang on, no, she was 85 she was, that's right. In 2006, 2008 she was 87. Of course she was. Anyway, she used to come in for a bit of a lie down, you know, get a bit of a rest of an afternoon, like you would if you're that age. And I can recall, and it's happened many times, but I can recall specifically one time when she was just going to come in. I just came in to pull the curtain, and the music upstairs started. It was as loud, I mean literally, I mean on an amp it would have been 11. Anyway, it was incredibly loud. I looked out the window and I saw that woman just going, if you look at, hang on, she was just going past, lost our next door neighbour who's actually been here longer than we have. She was just going past that wall there, and she looked back at me and she looked straight into my face. She knew exactly, I mean, she just put it on and went out. I mean, 87 rather, 87 years old Mum was. I mean, who'd do such a thing? Anyway, in November of that year, Mum got served with a notice to seek possession. Believe it or not, 87 years old, 87. And it contained, the thing contained 213 of these complaints, 213 of them, about TV and radio being played. Now, they were all lies, I can tell you that, right from the start. I may have mentioned that before. But that didn't stop the bloody, you know, them compiling all these and threatening an 87-year-old with eviction into the street, because that's what it said. You know, if there are further complaints, you'll have deemed to be made yourself homeless, etc., etc. 87. Now, of course, there were more. Can you imagine what that does to somebody at that age? I opened the envelope. It was just put through the letterbox about 6 o'clock in the evening. November the 3rd, I think it was. I'll come out here because the light's a bit better. If you can imagine what that would do to someone of any age. You know, it's brutal. It really is brutal. We'll come on to some more of that later. Anyway, I can remember that Christmas 2008, wondering if we were going to be out in the street. I was looking online at static caravans, and Mum was sitting there crying her eyes out, saying, is this how I'm going to end up, in a bloody caravan? Jesus. Anyway, nothing happened. About 3 months later, I wrote, I think it was March, anyway, and asked them if there had been any further complaints, because the banging at night and slamming and and that had still been going on. Excuse me. And they sent back a list of another 66. In about 3 months this was. And of course they hadn't acted on them because they knew they couldn't. I mean, it was just, well, I don't know what it was for. They wanted all the complaints to stop. That's all they ever do. They just want the complaints to stop. They don't give a shit about what people's lives are like. They just want their lives made simpler. Isn't it the case the world over? I think this will have to be in 2 parts. I'm going on a bit here. I've already been going for 11 minutes. I know I'm holding your attention. You're spellbound, aren't you? Anyway, I want to get this out for a specific reason. Anyway, as I say, that was so. Nothing happened. There was 66 more. They threatened they were going to do what they were going to do, and of course they didn't, because they knew they couldn't. So that was just a threat against a woman in her late 80s. The following, in 2009, this was in 2009, of course, but the banging and that and the disturbance at night kept going, and Mum just couldn't take it. So she went out of her bedroom, 9th of June 2009. She left that room. She came in here. I'll put the light on. Now it's going to help a great deal. She came in here, and she went into that chair there, if you can see it. That's the chair my father died in. She went into that chair at the age of 88. And she spent every day in there, every hour of every day in that, when she didn't get up to go to the toilet, until she died at the age of 93. Now, I don't know about people who are watching this and listening to me, droning on, and they think, oh, what a whiner. Ugh. Maybe they're right. But I do know one thing, and I do know, well, I know quite a few things actually, but this in particular, that what was done to that poor old woman is mind my language, is a blot on this country. It is a blot. Because in 2010, when the banging and that was still going over an empty room, I set up, well, just after, it was in 2009, when Mum came in here, I thought, well, what we can do is we'll prove that there's nothing, excuse me, nothing and nobody in that room. So when the complaints go in and we get told about them, we can act. We can at least prove that the woman has lied all along, which of course she had. I set up a DVD recorder and a security camera thing with the LEDs, and I let it run all night. And we expected for it to happen pretty quick, But the banging and that kept going. But we didn't hear about any complaints until April 2010. Now they'd already told us 279 times who'd been complaining. But when we asked for the details of the complaints, I mean, you're being told you're doing something which is frankly illegal, right? And whilst one can understand the necessity of protecting people's identity who make complaints, they'd already, as I said, they'd already told us 279 times, for Christ's sake. I mean, we knew who was doing it, they knew we knew, and yet they refused to tell us, so we had no details of these things at all. So we didn't know what nights, what times, or anything. And by then, I couldn't record every single night and put it onto a DVD and save it, which I did at the start. I had to start being a bit more, conservative in that regard. So I did every other night. But as it turned out, finally, We got when I wrote to the Chief Constable a few times, and finally we got the bloody copper come out, Sergeant Shaw, with details of the complaints. They wouldn't let us look at them. He just told me some dates, and there was about, I think, 18 of them in that April. There were 18, and we picked out 3 at random. I put the DVDs in the DVD player. He watched them back on the telly, and exactly what we said. That the thing was empty, and he agreed. Yes, that the council had been lied to, and all this business. That there could be no argument about it. I mean, tea's got cold. Damn it. But said, oh, what? It's a housing matter. And of course, our hearts sank when we heard that. And what he said to the housing department, if he did, he said anything at all, certainly made no difference whatsoever, because it continued and continued and continued. And we made a complaint about how they'd handled it in 2008, and were told that they'd followed all their procedures. We were told that again in, I think, 2011 or something, when we sent in diary sheets about the banging and the shouting and that, and we were told in the letter that the council had done everything they could, and we had to take our own private measures, presumably, civil action or something. Difficult when they won't give you the proof that you need. And then, I'm jumping ahead a little bit here just to make this point. In 2013, March, we had a letter unsolicited from our MP, where in a meeting, a council representative had admitted that they'd never investigated any of Mum's complaints at all. I've got that in writing. Well, it was in a letter, so it would be, wouldn't it? But from the PM's, she wishes, from the MP's office. And when we got that, we thought, well, civil action's all round then, chaps. So I sent her upstairs a letter before claim. Didn't get a reply to it, I don't think. Pretty sure I didn't. Well, I had to drop it because Mum got worse. I mean, by then she was 92. And little did we know she only had about a year to go. Well, it's very difficult to talk about that. Anyway, she died in 2014 with all this unresolved, and now here I am, a few days after Mum died. They came out and told me that whatever happens, I was going to lose my home of 60 years. 22 months later, as I speak to you now, it's Saturday morning, the 23rd of Shakespeare's anniversary. Monday morning, 10 o'clock, they're going to come and throw me out into the street. That's their intention, anyway. Not re-house, just thrown out into the street. 60 years, 30 years I looked after Mum and Dad. 85 when Dad was taken ill. He had angina, although it was a lung cancer that killed him. And then then Mum for the next 15 years till she died. And I can tell her the last 5 years when she was in the chair all day and all night, it was a 24-hour-a-day job. I haven't had holiday since 1976. Well, I suppose they're going to give me a holiday, aren't they? In the gutter. I've abridged a little of this, simply to try and get it in a reasonable size, because we're already up to nearly 20 minutes. I mean, I shouldn't imagine anyone's going to sit through all this. But I wanted to get it out there because I don't know what's going to happen Monday. I do know one thing, that I won't go. Forced relocation, this is. Two women came out and talked to tell me the other day before yesterday, about what's going to happen Monday. They're going to come in here, they're going to take all my stuff out of here, everything, put it in storage, and if I haven't bloody sorted it out in a month, it gets disposed of. Just like I get disposed of. We're disposable carers, we are disposable, we are a resource to be used, to be exploited, whilst they're of use. I should just say here that through all the years, well, my entire life in fact, but through all the years specifically that I was a carer for Mum and Dad, I had never had a penny off the state. Never in my life have I had a penny off the state. What I didn't have the money to pay for, I went without. I haven't had a pint for 1988, New Year's Eve. Last time I used to like to go out for a pint and a game of darts. That's the last time I had a bloody pint. Not much of a drinker anyway. But you lose your friends, you know. This has almost been like a prison, this place, for me. Certainly for the last 10 years, really. As Mum aged and life became more difficult for her. But she bore it bravely, just like Dad did when they told him he was dying of lung cancer. So when I found him in his chair that morning, I had to try and give him mouth to mouth. And when you're looking into your father's dead eyes, it's no fun. None of this has been any fun, and my battery's just winking because it's kaput. Anyway, I may do a little bit more of this. May update a bit of this later.